Iran just held a snap presidential election. Following the sudden death of its hardline President Ebrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash on May 19. On June 9, 2024, the Guardian Council approved 6 candidates for the presidential elections. 2 of them dropped out of the race a day before the election. However, the election became contentious with the disqualification of high-profile figures like former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and former Speaker of the Parliament Ali Larijani, along with 74 others. Notably, all female candidates were rejected, continuing a pattern of gender exclusion. Before diving into the profiles of the approved candidates, let's set the scene for what the incoming president will inherit. While all candidates are pledging to fix the economy, that won't be easy. They'll be inheriting a rial whose value has plummeted over the last decade, with inflation hovering around 40%. Meanwhile, global uncertainty and economic sanctions may cancel out the effects of the recent boost in Iran's oil sales. Voter turnout is also at an all-time low. A survey conducted by a Dutch institute earlier this month found that 65.5% of Iranians do not intend to vote. Of the people who do not intend to vote, 67.6% oppose the overall system of the Islamic Republic, and 18.1% feel the election is unimportant because the president's power is far too limited. The previous president was largely seen as irrelevant, with public anger directed at the supreme leader. When Raisi died, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured the public that the government would operate without the slightest disruption, alluding to how little power the president really held. To understand Iran's political system, think of it like a school. The supreme leader, like the principal, makes the big decisions and ensures everyone follows the rules. The president, like the vice principal, helps him manage the country's day-to-day operations. The parliament or Mejlis is like the student council, elected by the people, devising laws and deciding on budgets, but holding little effectual power compared to the principal. The Guardian Council is like a group of teachers reviewing the student council's decisions, ensuring laws comply with Islamic rules and the Constitution, and approving election candidates. And finally, the Assembly of Experts. Let's say they're the school board members, who select and remove the supreme leader. The difference is, they barely ever exercise the latter power, because they are selected by the supreme leader himself. And so, all avenues of power lead back to this man, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the longest-serving head of state in the Middle East, and to practicing Shias, a religious and spiritual leader as well. In the 1990s, he clashed with President Rafsanjani over his liberal outlook. This ideological tussle was amplified during Mohammad Khatami's time, who had been elected by popular support from young people, especially women. So when Ahmadinejad first came into power, he was expected to have the Ayatollah's favor because of his famously conservative approach. And he got it, even getting a second term because of the supreme leader's support. We interviewed Dr. Shahram Akbarzadeh, a professor of Middle East and Central Asian politics at Deakin University, who describes Iran's political system as tightly controlled, with power centralized around the supreme leader, supported by the Constitution. The Guardian Council, comprising theologians and jurists, holds significant power in qualifying or disqualifying election candidates, which is evident in Ahmadinejad's case. Despite this control, presidents like Mohammad Khatami and Hassan Rouhani have shown that the system allows for limited change. But allowing a reformist like Pezeshkian to run is a strategy to create a false sense of political pluralism and boost voter turnout, as many Iranians have lost hope for meaningful change. Domestic policy is expected to remain rigid, with strict laws and continued suppression of dissent. This brings us to the candidates running today. 2 of the most staunch hardliners, Amir Hossein Ghazazadeh Hashemi and Ali Reza Zaghani, dropped out of the election the day before it took place. This is fairly common in Iranian elections, and Zaghani also dropped out in 2021 when Raisi became president. Both made statements that suggested they did not wish to break the conservative vote and allow Pezeshkian to win. So first up, we have Mohammad Bakir Kalibaf, the 62-year-old current Speaker of Parliament, former mayor of Tehran, and a self-proclaimed soldier of the Islamic Revolution. He has served as a general of the Revolutionary Guards and chief of the National Police. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps are a multi-service branch of the Iranian military, which supports militant groups in Iraq, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, and Yemen. But Kalibaf has also been a hardliner at home. He oversaw a violent crackdown against student protesters. 58-year-old Saeed Jalali is seen as the darling of the ultra-conservative camp within the Iranian regime. He is a member of the Expediency Discernment Council, the body that dissolves conflicts between the parliament and the Guardian Council, and so he's well-versed in national governance. What is even more interesting is Jalali's former role as an international negotiator for Iran's nuclear program, during which he advocated for continued uranium enrichment of up to 90%. Mostafa Pour Mohammadi, the 64-year-old Islamic cleric, former Interior and Justice Minister. He is linked to mass executions of political prisoners in the 1980s. Masoud Pezeshkian, the 69-year-old former health minister and the only reformist candidate in the list. He is considered slightly more moderate than his rivals in the presidential race. He was disqualified by the Guardian Council in 2021, so allowing him to run in 2024 could be seen as a way of pacifying voters in favor of a regime change. Dr. Akbarzadeh believes that Iran's policies on domestic issues will remain unchanged after the election. The regime has abandoned any pretense of democracy. So strict laws, such as the mandatory wearing of hijabs, will likely continue, with women who defy these laws being dragged in the streets. On the international front, Iran's nuclear development remains a contentious issue. Dr. Akbarzadeh believes that if Trump wins in the US elections, and both countries have conservative leaderships installed, nuclear negotiations between the two countries will probably come to a standstill. But perhaps Iran's most combative stance on the international front is its use of regional proxies. Israel's protracted assault on Gaza has redoubled the Iranian resolve to continue the policy of using regional proxies. Whoever wins the election will have to deal with all this, facing turmoil at home and abroad.